Well, greetings, vinyl community. The topic of this video is the 6th studio album by Yes. Their 7th album overall, following the triple live LP Yes Songs. This is 1973's Tales from Topographic Oceans. This is one of the most ambitious projects, I think, in the history of rock music, and has become a byword for prog rock excess. I think it's really one of the greatest albums in the genre and very worth taking a look at. In 1972, mid-year, Yes completed their 5th album, Close to the Edge, after which drummer Bill Bruford left the band to join King Crimson. And in March of 1973, Bill Bruford got married, and 2 of his wedding guests were his current King Crimson bandmate, Jamie Muir, and his former Yes bandmate, John Anderson. And the 2 of them got to talking. Jamie Muir was a great devotee of the book Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, and had formed a very deep emotional and spiritual connection with that book, which is a classic of spiritual literature. And he recommended that John Anderson read it, which he did. And while he was reading it, John was struck by a footnote that was explaining the word shastric. And this is what he read. Pertaining to the Shastras, literally sacred books, comprising 4 classes of scripture, the Shruti, Smriti, Purana, and Tantra. These comprehensive treatises cover every aspect of religious and social life and the fields of law, medicine, architecture, art, etc. The Shrutis are the directly heard or revealed scriptures, the Vedas. The Smritis, or remembered lore, was finally written down in a remote past as the world's longest epic poems, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana. Puranas are literally ancient allegories. Tantras literally mean rites or rituals. These treatises convey profound truths under a veil of detailed symbolism. John Anderson read this and thought that these 4 classes of Hindu scripture would form the basis of the next Yes album, that each one could have one side of a double LP devoted to it. And so, while Yes was on tour promoting the Close to the Edge album, with their new drummer, Alan White, replacing Bill Bruford, after the shows, John Anderson would get together with guitarist Steve Howe in their hotel rooms, light up some candles, fire up the tape recorder, maybe fire up something else, I don't know, and they traded ideas for how to treat these 4 concepts and make an album out of them. During the American leg of the tour, they came up with a sort of framework idea, and this was presented to the band, who were initially skeptical, but they were persuaded to produce the album as John envisioned it, John and Steve. And the recording sessions for this album were the stuff of legend. John Anderson had the idea of recording in the open air, which was completely unworkable. So in order to get a out in the country kind of vibe in the studio, he brought plants into the studio. There were cut out farm animals, a legendary pasteboard or plywood cow. I'm not sure what it was made of. And at one point, John Anderson wanted his vocal to have the kind of resonance that you get when singing in the bathroom. So he asked that a booth be constructed lined with bathroom tiles. They told him, John, that's not going to work. You need solid walls behind the tile to get that sound. And he insisted, and they built it, and it didn't work. And finally, the album did get done, and was almost lost to history when the producer Eddie Offord and John Anderson attempted to drive off after forgetting that the tapes had been left on the roof of the car. And when they predictably fell off into traffic, John Anderson jumped out of the car in order to stop an oncoming bus that was about to crush them. So the tapes were saved and the album was made. So I'll go through each of the 4 sides, and I don't want to get too caught up in a matter of this happens, then this happens, then this happens, the play-by-play, but I will do that a lot, particularly with the first side, just to show how elaborate the structure of the album is, because it's made up of, or at least boasts, dozens, if not hundreds, of little ideas, motifs, themes, verses that recur in various guises throughout the album. Side 1 is titled The Revealing Science of God, subtitled Dance of the Dawn. Each side has both a title, which is a rough translation of the Shastric scripture category, and a subtitle. The Revealing Science of God is based on the Shastra's Shrutis, which are divine revelations that have no human author. The side begins with a chant centered on the note B, and the accompaniment is very sparse, very minimal at first, but gradually harmony voices and various sounds are added, growing denser and more intense until the chant concludes on the word life everlasting, and sort of Keith Moon-inspired drum fill from Alan White leads into a majestic, fanfare-like instrumental theme. And I'm going to talk a bit about that, so I'll refer to that as the fanfare. At the very beginning of the album, the vocal chant is accompanied just by some long single notes, and those notes are E, D sharp, B, D, C sharp, A. That's actually just one 3-note pattern repeated a whole tone lower. When the fanfare enters, it's this. That's the same 6 notes, harmonized as full chords. In fact, it's only 2 chords. It's E, B, and another voicing of B, D, A, and another voicing of A. And if you listen for it, this motif will crop up all over the album. So this is how the album works. It's little ingredients that are used to make a very, very big souffle. Just one example of the way the music is tied together with all these recurring themes that may appear either as foreground or background variations. Now, this fanfare gives way to a joyous passage with the classic Yes-like lyrics, "Talk to the sunlight caller, soft summer mover, distance mine." Very much the way that John Anderson writes lyrics. He has his own sort of syntax and a vocabulary that draws very much on those sort of sounds. Summer and sunlight are the sort of thing that John Anderson will speak of a lot. This constitutes something of a third intro following the chant and the fanfare section, and it is still firmly in the key of E major, which has been established by the preceding section, but when it gives way to the first proper song section of the piece, it surprisingly changes tonality and goes through some unusual chord sequences. This section consists of 2 verse-chorus combinations separated by a simple instrumental theme that will reappear numerous times. And the second time through, this theme breaks into this fast, nervous minor key section that cycles through various time signatures as John Anderson calls out two-word phrases. And this is a style that's quite reminiscent of Siberian Quatre from the previous album, Close to the Edge. Now, after some instrumental variations on the themes presented earlier, we reach a new verse melody in D major, followed by a reprise of that clattering G-sharp minor section. Steve Howe slams out a concise but frantic and layered guitar solo, and another instrumental transition leads into another new song part. This one is recycled from the Fragile album period, at least. It was something that was found on a tape. I think it was just a run-through of a song called All Fighters Past. On the original demo, it's an up-tempo rocker, and you can hear this on the expanded version of the Fragile CD. But when it was incorporated into Tales from Topographic Oceans, it's very different. It's soft and wistful and set to a soft, fragmented rhythm. After some more instrumental variations, Rick Wakeman gets his chance to step out. He pulls off a ripping Moog synthesizer solo. Then there's a reprise of the D major verse, now boasting a key change to E major to accommodate the return of the chorus from the first song section. And finally, the movement draws to a close with a new version of the opening chant, resolving sweetly on the words, "For you and you and you." The second movement is the remembering, high the memory. And this is based on the Shastras of Smriti, which are those that are remembered, things that were actually set down by human authors and included in the Hindu scriptures. The Remembering is the title, with the subtitle High the Memory. And after a brief instrumental introductory flourish, which will form the accompaniment for one of the vocal themes later in the piece, again, all these ideas appear in different guises all over the place. The Remembering begins with a languid, drifting vocal melody cycling between the chords of F and G. But what key are we in? Because F and G don't exactly agree with each other as chords, because F chord includes a note that isn't in the G scale, and G as a chord includes a note that isn't in the F scale. But they're both completely in the C scale. So we are in C major, but we never reach C major. We never settle. We're adrift. It's a very oceanic piece. It's like the Topographic Oceans. There is a great feeling of water. There's a mention of sailors. It could be tempting to use the rule of 4 to find a water, earth, air, and fire correspondence among the 4 sides, but I don't think that really fits. There are too many ways you could do it, and they would probably all be equally valid. And this alternating between F and G in also in constantly alternating measures of 3/4 and 4/4, it's like being adrift on the waves. It's going F and G and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It is rootless. It never goes home to the C chord that would form a resolution. So we're floating, we're drifting. There's a bridge section which is introduced by the words of the song's subtitle, High the Memory. And it retains the 7-beat pattern that's been established, but is based on 8th notes now, so it's in double time. And it also retains the 2-chord pattern, but with the F replaced by its relative minor of D minor. So again, they're using a kind of economy of means, even with the most elaborate and extravagant kind of production. There's a short recap of the main melody, which emphasizes the rootless feeling even more by stretching out when it reaches the highest note just for an extra 2 beats. And shortly after this comes what I call the primordial soup section. Shout out to JBS Haldane. It's a still, ambient wash of sound, and it occurs 4 times over the course of the album side. Each time a little more developed and complex, so it's like something's evolving in this primordial soup. And the second iteration introduces a very beautiful synthesizer melody by Rick Wakeman. Other highlights on the side include the bouncy Out in the City Running Free section, which contains one of the album's few jokes in the pun on school gates remind us of our class. There's a niftily syncopated 3/4 section, Don the Cap and Close Your Eyes, that theme, and a fiercely rocking section centered on the word relayer, which recalls the 7-beat pattern of the opening theme, and even finds Rick Wakeman quoting that theme on the Moog during a little instrumental break. And the repeated word relayer would provide the title for the next Yes album, 1 year, one very long year later. And this is just a little speculation, but there is an explicit reference to Jesus Christ in this relayer section. The words are, all the passion spent on one cross. There's another mention of Christianity on the album earlier in Young Christians See It in The Revealing Science of God. So I just wonder if the word relayer might itself refer to Jesus, thinking of him as the relayer of the grace of God to man. The third movement is The Ancient, subtitled Giants Under the Sun, and that is based on the Shastras of Puranas, the ancient legends and lore. Opens with a splash of gong and cymbals, leading into a propulsive, clattering, percussive ostinato with Steve Howe's steel guitar wailing over it. This movement is mostly instrumental and focused primarily on the guitar and the drums. The music is much more harsh and agitated than what has come before. John Anderson has just short vocal parts during most of the side. The first one just lasts a few bars, and the second is a brief passage in which he invokes the words for sun or the names of sun gods in various ancient and modern languages. And these include Latin, Hindi, English, Greek, Mayan, Lithuanian or Latvian, Aztec, Turkish, Gaelic, Sanskrit, Arabic, and a few others I haven't been able to identify. The words are all chanted on the note A. And after a lengthy series of instrumental scenes, Anderson returns with another short vocal statement in a strange altered minor scale, giving way to a rhapsodic, classical-styled solo by Steve Howe on Spanish guitar, a rented Ramirez. And finally, the only real song on the side. Most of the tracks, as long and elaborately structured as they are, do contain verse, chorus, song sections. This doesn't do that until the very end with a song that has been performed as a standalone piece on stage by Yes, a gentle ballad which has come to be called Leaves of Green, although it doesn't have that title on Topographic Oceans. And Howe closes out the side with a reprise of the Spanish guitar showpiece, and finally leads the band in a triumphant electric coda based on a theme from earlier in the side. As usual, they come up with an idea and they reuse it for various purposes. The final movement is Ritual, with the subtitle Nous sommes du soleil, or We are of the sun in French. And this is based on the Shastras of Tantra, rites, rituals, practices, and also largely known with an exaggerated importance in the West for its erotic aspect. The movement opens with a series of big symphonic chords accompanying a squirming bass line from Chris Squire, a soaring theme led by the guitar and mellotron, and a recollection of a melody from the beginning of the album. And then there's a wordless vocal theme from John Anderson. Da 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 da. And a sample of this theme, cut up and looped, forms the basis of the rap Grind Date by De La Soul. So there's your yes in pop culture. Then, over the sound of rushing wind, Steve Howe plays a rambling solo that recalls various themes from the album and even quotes Close to the Edge itself. That leads into an ecstatic chorus of Nous sommes du soleil, we love when we play, and a verse section featuring Steve Howe on electric sitar. The rhythm section of Yes gets to step into the spotlight on this side, with Chris Squire playing a fierce bass solo over a rocking 5/4 groove, and Alan White leading a terrifying percussion and electronics interlude. John Anderson returns towards the end with a tender and wistful new variation on the Nous sommes du soleil song, which does touch on the sexual aspect of Tantra, with the words, hold me my love, hold me today, call me round, travel we say, wander we choose, love tune, lay upon me, hold me around lasting hours, we love when we play. And Steve Howe's climactic guitar solo gives way to a delicate coda of bass and mellotron to close out the album. As with the preceding 3 Yes albums, the cover art is by Roger Dean, folds out into a panorama combining various landscapes from around the world, rock formations from Britain, and on the front cover we can see the pyramid from Chichen Itza and the plains of Nazca, the artwork on that. Inside are various nature scenes, and the labels themselves show a variant of the cover art. Let me get that out. So that is Tales from Topographic Oceans. Thank you very much for watching. Be well. Talk with you again soon. Bye-bye for now.